4 stars are often overshadowed by their 5 and 6 star counterparts, but it's actually a really good idea to spread your investments between different rarities since 4 stars are much cheaper to promote, skill up, and max potential. Today, we will be talking about some of the best 4 star operators to invest in, although you should take your own team composition and playstyle into consideration. I will also try to avoid operators who are essentially a budget version of a 5 or 6 star since it will make the list too long. For example, Vermeil is a budget version of Blue Poison and Moose is a budget version of Astacia. Let's start this list with arguably the best 4 star in the game, Myrtle. Myrtle is the only operator in the support Vanguard archetype who is available in EN. But even with the release of Elysium, a 5 star support Vanguard, Myrtle is not seeing much of a drop in terms of usage. Her DP regeneration value is insane, so she's a better choice compared to someone like Siege or Zima, if we only consider the DP regeneration. Myrtle also has the highest use rate for any 4 star in the next contingency contract, which is really good. So you know that you'll always be able to use her even when the 5 star counterpart was released. As I mentioned a while ago, Myrtle didn't see a drop in her use rate much. First of all, she's cheaper to deploy than Elysium, and if you compare around 3 skill activations, Myrtle will actually beat Elysium since Elysium's skill takes a lot longer, like I think 4 or 3 SB more to charge. So yeah. Which skill should you be investing in when you use Myrtle? Personally, I recommend her skill 2. It regenerates DP at a much slower pace, but it also heals allies near Myrtle. This skill has a lot of applications and you can use it to delay deploying your healer or heal defender while generating deployment points. Although I noticed that most EN players prefer skill 1, of course which skill you use will depend on the stage and how much DP you need. For example, a very tight stage with a specific composition, you'll need skill 1. But if the stage isn't really that tight, which is more often seen, then I'd go with skill 2. It allows Myrtle to have more value. She's able to heal the team, so you don't have to deploy a healer for maybe almost half, or depending on how hard the map is, almost half of the game. So yeah, it's a really good way to regenerate DP while supporting your team. I recommend Mastery 6 for Myrtle to all Arc Knights players. So Mastery 6 means 2 Mastery 3s. So for skill 1 you max it as well as skill 2. But if I had to choose one, if for example I could only max one skill, I would personally go for skill 2. The second one for this list is Vigna. Vigna is a DP on-kill Vanguard like Reed, Granny, and Bagpipe. And the reason why I think she's really good is because of her insanely high DPS and her low DP cost. With her skill 2, she can actually out DPS Granny and Reed. What does this mean? Does this mean that Vigna is better than the 5 star counterparts? No, it doesn't mean that. All it means is that she can dish out a lot of damage. Keep in mind that Granny isn't built for damage. She can block 2 when her skill is activated. Although it does have its downsides, reduced range is really huge. A really huge downside for a DP on-kill Vanguard. Reed also is especially good against casters and magic damage because she has magic resist and she can also deal a bit of magic damage, which is really good because mixed damage is always really good. So Vigna isn't a replace. She can be used as a replacement, but she isn't. It doesn't mean that the 5 stars are bad. But remember that DP on-kill Vanguards, most of the time you're just going to be using them for early game. There's not going to be a lot of strong mobs yet. So you just really need a really good DPS. So what I'm saying is Vigna is enough. That's what I'm saying. Vigna is enough for what her role is supposed to be fulfilling. She can easily reach like 1,800. I'm not sure if she can reach around 2,000, but my Vigna will reach around 1,800 when her skill 2 is activated. So that's insane. That's a lot of damage.
Now that's a lot of damage!
And her talent also gives her a chance to crit. So that's a really good bonus for a DPS based operator. That's a really good bonus. Overall, she's a very solid unit to invest in, and anyone who doesn't plan to invest in Granny or Reed should look into Vigna. And if you plan to invest in Bagpipe, don't shy away from Vigna. You can even use them together for some early rush stages. For players with at least 10 Elite 2s, excluding Granny or Reed, I recommend building Vigna at S2 Mastery 3. Next is Ethan. Ethan is a zero block specialist like Manticore. While Manticore is used for his slow, Ethan is used for his bind. And since Ethan doesn't possess a slow type crowd control, he can easily be paired with Manticore. This and the fact that he is easily obtained makes him a really strong unit. For general use, I recommend an Elite 1 Skill 7 Manticore for all Arc Knights players. We are down to the last operator in this list, but before that, I would just like to say that if you have a strong 4-star operator and didn't see him or her in this list, please do not flame me in the comments. Over several weeks, I narrowed this list down from 16 operators and ended up with 4. I looked into every 4-star operator and it was really hard to trim this list down. For example, I wanted to include Shirayuki and Shaw, but since we will be getting W and WD in the distant future, I believe they are less important as investments compared to the operators in this list. The last operator in this list is a 4-star who we will be seeing in our next contingency contract, Utage. Utage is from the Vampire Guard archetype like Helagur, but she isn't used in the same way. Most people actually compare her to Skadi because she is used as a heli drop operator. This just means that we deploy Utage against a chosen enemy. Like Helagur, Utage's attack speed increases the more she has a lower health. So she can also regen 70 health every time she hits an enemy, so her sustain against single enemies is really good. She can gain up to 100% attack speed depending on her lost health, and her skill 2 actually allows her to gain 110% additional attack damage and changes her attack from physical into arts damage for 16 seconds after deployment. So anyone who cannot one-shot her will have a really hard time against her. Another part of her skill 2 is 50% health reduction, and this is both good and bad since it makes Utage more prone to be one-shot, but it also activates Utage's attack speed talent. So as long as she doesn't get one-shot, she regains health relatively fast. As for her skill 1, it's essentially her using rest. She reduces her block and stops attacking, but she gains defense and recovers health over that period, and you can use this to bait out some enemy skills. But again, it's if you recall that she's a vampire guard, which means that she cannot accept healing from other units, so she cannot be directly healed by other units. So the application I see here is if you're taking a certain risk in the contingency contract where you're not allowed to use ranged tiles or healers or a combination of both, so you can use Utage to tank some damage with this skill. So it's a really nice skill, and I think it adds to her uniqueness against Helagur. Overall, a really strong unit, and I recommend all players who already have at least 25 Elite 2 operators to build Utage, and the ideal skill for her is skill 2.